A lot of people think the Appalachian Mountains are just trees, trails, and old hiking stories. But there are parts of that range where people don't disappear suddenly. They vanish slowly. They smell something first. They hear footsteps that don't belong to animals. And they realize too late that whatever noticed them already knows their routine. Before we start, comment where you're watching from and what time it is, because the stories you're about to hear didn't begin with fear. They began with silence. I was 26 when I decided to hike part of the Appalachian Trail alone. Not the entire trail, not some heroic end-to-end journey people write books about, just a short loop, about a week, something manageable, something quiet. I wasn't running from anything specific, no breakdown, no dramatic turning point. I was just exhausted in a way sleep didn't fix. Work, screens, conversations that went nowhere. I wanted distance, real distance. The kind where no one expects anything from you. I picked a section in North Carolina that looked remote, but not reckless. Close enough to a small town if something went wrong. Far enough that I wouldn't see many people. I didn't post about it. Didn't share my route online. I told my sister I'd be off-grid for a bit and left it at that. The less people knew, the better. The first 3 days were exactly what I needed. Long stretches of trail without seeing another hiker. Thick forest pressing in from both sides. The kind of quiet where you start noticing details you usually miss. How many shades of green exist? How moss feels cold and damp against your hand. How the forest smells different depending on the time of day. I fell into a rhythm. Wake up early, pack slowly, walk until my legs burned in a good way, eat terrible freeze-dried meals, filter water from streams, set up camp before dark. I saw a deer once, a bear far off on a ridge another day. Neither paid me any attention. I didn't go looking for trouble, and it didn't come looking for me. I was careful, maybe too careful. Bear bag hung high every night, campsites chosen early. I checked maps constantly, marked bailout points, carried a paper backup in case my phone died. I had plans layered on top of plans. That structure gave me comfort. It made me feel like I was in control. On the 4th day, I set up camp in a hollow north of Devil's Thread Gap. There was a dry creek bed nearby, and a natural rock formation that blocked the wind. It felt sheltered, private. I remember thinking it was the kind of place you'd remember later as a favorite spot. I cooked dinner as the sun dipped low, sat on a half-rotted log, flipping through a book on my phone, while powdered lasagna rehydrated into something barely edible. That's when the smell hit. It was immediate, sharp, chemical, not just bad, wrong. It burned the back of my nose, like rust, battery acid, and something sweet underneath, almost syrupy. I gagged and stood up fast, scanning the area. My first thought was a dead animal. That happens out there. So I grabbed my headlamp and did a slow sweep. I checked the creek bed. Nothing. The slope above camp. Nothing. The tree line. Nothing. No carcass. No buzzards. No disturbed leaves. No tracks. Just stillness. Too much stillness. I didn't waste time after that. I shoved the food down, double-checked my bear hang, and zipped myself into the tent before sunset. I told myself smells travel strangely in the mountains. That logic should have settled me. It didn't. Sometime after midnight, I heard footsteps. Not fast, not heavy, just steady. One step at a time through dry leaves and twigs. I've heard animals move through the woods before. Raccoons, foxes, deer. This wasn't that. This was deliberate. I sat up inside my sleeping bag and went completely still. I wasn't even breathing normally. The steps moved around the tent once, a slow, perfect circle. Then they stopped, right behind my head. No rustling, no flashlight, no voice, just presence. I had my knife clenched under the sleeping bag, so hard my fingers went numb. I stayed like that until the sky lightened, and birds finally started making noise again. In the morning, I checked the ground. There were footprints, not mine. The soles were almost completely smooth, like old leather shoes, and the toes pointed slightly inward, like the person walked with their feet turned in. That detail bothered me more than anything else. I packed fast, didn't eat, didn't stretch, just started walking. I skipped my next planned campsite, ignored my breaks, drank water while moving, and the smell followed me. It came in waves, sometimes faint, sometimes strong, always wrong. Nothing dead follows you for 10 miles. That night, I camped high on a ridge where the trees thinned out and visibility was better. I didn't cook, didn't make a fire. I crawled into the tent early and kept the knife in my hand like it was glued there. Around 2 a.m., I woke up again, breathing, slow, steady, human, coming from just beyond the tree line. Then footsteps started again, straight toward the tent this time. I saw the silhouette, tall, lean, backlit by moonlight. It was holding something long, a staff, a pole. I couldn't tell. It stopped inches from the tent and tapped it once, just one knock. Then it turned and walked away. The smell lingered long after. I didn't sleep after that. I packed before sunrise and followed a maintenance road I'd marked as an emergency route. Late that afternoon, barely able to move my legs, I stumbled across an old hunting shack. 3 walls, half a roof, rotting wood. Inside, carved into the beam above the doorway, were names, dozens of them, each with a date, some old, some recent. The most recent was from 3 days earlier. Under it was an empty space, like it was waiting. I stayed there until morning, knife in hand, listening for steps that never came. At first light, I walked until I found a ranger truck. I told him I'd seen a bear and gotten turned around. When I got home, I sold all my gear, maps, boots, filter, everything. I haven't hiked since. I used to think I was pretty comfortable in the woods. I wasn't some survival expert, but I'd camped plenty of times. Weekend hikes, bonfires with friends, sleeping under the stars after a few beers and too many marshmallows. I didn't panic at every snapping twig. So when my cousin Ben invited me out to his family's place near Waverly, Virginia, I didn't hesitate. His family owned a log cabin way past the edge of anything resembling civilization. No neighbors, no cell signal, no ambient glow from town, just trees, endless trees, the kind that start right at the edge of the yard and keep going until they swallow the horizon. Ben and I grew up close, summers together, dumb competitions, same sense of humor. We were both 20 at the time, technically adults, but when we were together, it still felt like being kids again. A few days into the visit, boredom hit hard. No Wi-Fi, no nightlife. Only so much Mario Kart you can play before you start questioning your life choices. That's when Ben mentioned the fire tower. "There's one past Ridge Point Bluff," he said, casually, like he was talking about a convenience store. About 3 miles in, still standing. I paused mid-bite of a grilled cheese. "You've been up there?" "Once. Night hike, sophomore year." He shrugged. "Sketchy, but the view's insane." I laughed it off at first. A night hike through unmarked Appalachian woods didn't sound like a great idea, but Ben pushed. "Come on, we've done dumber stuff." He wasn't wrong, so we packed light. 2 sleeping bags, a tiny stove, some ramen, headlamps. I brought a flashlight, and the folding knife my uncle gave me for graduation. Just having it made me feel better. We left just before 9. The last bit of daylight was bleeding out of the sky as we stepped into the woods. The trail, if you could call it that, started behind the cabin and immediately disappeared into trees. Narrow, uneven, more deer path than hiking trail. Branches grabbed at us, roots tripped us. Within minutes, my shins were scraped up. After 15 minutes, we stopped talking. The woods felt muted. No crickets, no frogs, no bugs, just our footsteps and the occasional rustle when we brushed past leaves. It felt like being underwater. About halfway in, we passed a rusted truck leaned sideways against a tree. Moss covered the hood. Vines threaded through broken windows. "Been there forever," Ben said. "Old logging truck." We joked about horror movies, the kind where you see something like that and know someone's about to die. Another half hour in, we saw something hanging from a tree. At first, I thought it was some kind of decoration, tin can chimes maybe. Then we got closer. Bones, small ones, bird-sized, strung together with twine, feathers tied in, smears of dark red paint on the larger pieces. There was no wind, but it rotated slowly. Ben said it was folk stuff, old Appalachian protection symbols, witchcraft, maybe. I didn't like how casual he sounded. By the time we saw the fire tower, it was past midnight. It rose out of the treetops like a rusted skeleton. Iron beams, missing steps, bent railings. I stared up at it, stomach tight. "You sure this thing's safe?" Ben grinned. "Only one way to find out." We climbed carefully. Steps crunched, metal groaned. At one point, I had to jump a missing rung that made my legs shake. At the top, we laid our sleeping bags on the warped platform and cooked ramen while staring at the stars. For a moment, it felt worth it. Then I heard footsteps, down below, slow, heavy, deliberate. Ben shut his flashlight off instantly. "Don't move," he whispered. The steps circled the tower. Once, twice. No voices, no coughing, just pacing. I counted the steps in my head to keep from panicking. Then silence. At some point, exhaustion took over. I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, something was wrong. Ben's sleeping bag was empty, zipped open. "Ben?" I whispered. No answer. I crept to the edge and shined my light downward. Someone stood at the base of the tower, tall, thin, arms hanging too long, head tilted at a wrong angle. Then I heard Ben's voice, from the trees. "Josh, I need help." Too clear, too flat, like a recording. The thing below started climbing. Not the stairs, the beams, hands gripping iron, limbs bending wrong. Then I heard Ben again, this time real, breathless, close. The thing stopped, then dropped. Seconds later, Ben burst from the trees screaming. We didn't climb down. We slid, dropped, fell, ran until dawn. We never talked about it again. But sometimes, late at night, I still hear Ben's voice calling my name, and I don't answer. I was 17 the summer everything at home fell apart. My parents argued constantly, not about anything specific, just everything. Money, dishes, how loud the TV was, who forgot to buy toothpaste. Every small thing turned into a full-blown fight. Some nights, I'd get home from school and just sit in the driveway, engine off, staring at the house. waiting for the yelling to stop. It never did. After one fight that ended with my dad throwing a chair across the living room, I texted my mom from my bedroom and told her I needed to get away for a while. She didn't ask where, just replied, "Okay, be safe." My Uncle Travis had an off-the-grid cabin near Franklin, West Virginia, not on GPS, middle of nowhere. I'd been there once as a kid. I remembered it being boring. At that point, boring sounded perfect. Travis picked me up from the bus station without saying much. Chewed sunflower seeds the whole drive, spitting shells into an old bottle. When we pulled up, the cabin looked smaller than I remembered. Gray wood, loose screen door, porch swing with only one chain. Inside, it smelled like burnt coffee and old wood. 2 rooms, a bathroom, a wood stove, a dog bowl by the sink. I asked about it. "Had a mutt years ago," Travis said. "Died." Then, like it was nothing, he added, "Don't follow the carved trees, don't stay out after dark, and don't go west." I waited for a reason, got none. The next few days, I wandered. No phone service, no TV, no radio, just woods. They were thick, rolling hills folding into each other until direction stopped meaning anything. And they were quiet, too quiet. I started noticing bones, small ones at first, birds, rabbits, clean, dry, arranged just off the trail. Later, larger ones, a raccoon ribcage, always positioned deliberately. Then the carvings, symbols cut deep into tree bark, not initials, not hearts. Shapes that didn't feel decorative, circles inside circles, spidery lines, stick figures with X's for heads. Some were surrounded by black handprints, small ones, child-sized, and they moved. I'd see one on a tree, come back the next day, and it would be gone, or appear somewhere else entirely. When I asked Travis about them, he didn't look up from his plate. "Don't touch, don't follow, don't ask again." One morning, before sunrise, I couldn't sleep. I packed some jerky, a flashlight, and followed a narrow path I hadn't noticed before. It dipped between 2 trees that were completely dead, like they'd been burned from the inside out. The trail curved strangely, almost circular. Then it opened into a clearing, a perfect ring of stones, evenly spaced. No grass inside, just packed dirt. In the center, a tree stump, pale, fresh-looking, wrong. Above it, hanging from a branch, was a rope, a noose. It wasn't swinging fast, just slightly, like it had been touched. I turned around. Someone was there, barefoot, skin like dried leather, shirt stained dark at the collar, ribs visible, eyes pale and unblinking. He sniffed the air slowly. I whispered, "Sorry," and ran. The woods changed, trees leaned wrong, paths vanished. Sounds appeared and disappeared just long enough to confuse me. I fell, scraped myself raw, lost my flashlight. When I finally burst into the clearing near the cabin, Travis was waiting on the porch with a shotgun. "You stepped into the wrong circle," he said. That night, we sat in silence. Around 1 in the morning, footsteps began at the edge of the trees. Slow, heavy. Then a voice. "Mason," my mother's voice. "Mason, help me, I'm lost." I stood up. Travis grabbed my wrist hard and shook his head. The voice circled the cabin, changed direction, repeated. At dawn, footprints circled the house, bare feet, toes splayed wide. They stopped under my window, then vanished. I left that day. 10 years passed. Life normalized, until I went camping again. Different forest, different state. The first night, I heard my name, from the trees. I packed before sunrise. Some places don't forget you, they just wait. You probably noticed something about these stories. They begin with solitude, A hike meant to clear the mind. A fire tower meant to feel safer than the ground. A cabin meant to be far enough from everything else. That's what makes the Appalachian Mountains different from most places. They don't rush you. They don't attack immediately. They wait. In the first story, the danger came quietly, step by step, long before it showed itself. In the second, height didn't mean safety. Being 30 feet off the ground didn't stop something from watching and learning. And in the third, the forest didn't hide what it was doing at all. It spoke. What connects these stories isn't what was seen. It's what was recognized. Footsteps that didn't behave like an animal. Breathing that didn't need to move. Voices that sounded familiar, but felt wrong. The Appalachians are old, older than trails, older than maps, older than the idea that humans belong there. And when you spend enough time in those woods, you start to understand something unsettling. The forest doesn't chase you, it studies you. It learns how you walk, how you speak, who you trust, and sometimes it answers back. That's why people who've spent time deep in those mountains all say the same thing. Don't follow voices, don't investigate footsteps, and don't assume that height, distance, or familiarity will protect you. Because out there, the most dangerous thing isn't getting lost, it's being found.